You are paying too much for food. Every single week, you walk into a grocery store, hand over money you worked hard to earn, and walk out with vegetables that were picked days ago, trucked hundreds of miles, and sprayed with things you can't pronounce. And somewhere in the back of your mind, there is a quiet voice that says, there has to be a better way. There is. And it has been sitting quietly in the heart of Amish country for over 200 years, waiting for the rest of America to remember it. Here is what most people don't know. The Amish did not always have acres of rolling farmland. In the early days of their communities, families lived in tight quarters, small homes, narrow yards, shared spaces. And yet they fed themselves, fully, completely, through every season. They did it not because they had more land, but because they understood land differently. They knew that 10 well-managed square feet could outproduce 100 neglected ones. They knew that the right plant in the right place at the right time was worth more than a field full of the wrong choices. And today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how they did it, and how you can do it too, whether you have a balcony, a windowsill, a fire escape, or just a few containers on a concrete porch. Welcome to Amish Heritage Secrets. What you are about to learn has fed real families through real winters for generations. Let's begin. Now, sit with this for a moment. The first thing the Amish understood about small space growing is something modern gardeners almost always get wrong. They never asked the question, how much space do I have? They asked a completely different question. How much food can this space produce if I treat it exactly right? That shift in thinking changes everything. It turns a balcony from a limitation into a system. The first Amish small space secret is what we might call vertical stacking, and it is the foundation of everything else. When land is scarce, you don't spread out. You grow up. Amish families in tight quarters have always trained their beans up rough-cut wooden poles, let their cucumbers climb hand-tied twine strung between window frames, and grown their peas up lattice panels, leaning against stone walls. A single vertical structure 4 feet wide and 6 feet tall can produce the same yield as 20 square feet of flat garden bed. When you run your hand along a climbing bean vine in full production, feeling the rough texture of the leaves, the cool smoothness of the pods hanging heavy and ready, you understand immediately why the Amish never wasted a vertical inch. The science behind this is straightforward. Plants grown vertically receive more even sunlight exposure across all their leaves, produce better air circulation which reduces disease, and direct more energy into fruit production rather than sprawling stem growth. The Amish didn't know the science. They knew the results. And the results spoke for themselves every harvest season. Before we move on to the next secret, let's talk about something the Amish figured out long before any gardening book ever put it into words. The second secret is called companion planting. And in Amish tradition, it is treated not as a technique but as a relationship. Plants, the Amish understood, do not grow in isolation in nature. They grow in communities, each one giving something to the ones around it. The classic Amish combination, beans, corn, and squash, known as the Three Sisters, is the most famous example. But in a small space setting, the Amish applied this principle even more precisely. Tall plants shaded low ones that preferred cooler roots. Deep-rooted plants broke up soil for shallow-rooted neighbors. Strong-scented herbs like lavender and thyme grew at the edges of every small bed, confusing the insects that would otherwise devour everything. In 10 square feet, a properly planned companion planting arrangement can house 4 to 6 different crops simultaneously, each one making the others more productive. The result is a small space that produces not like a garden, but like an ecosystem. Layered, efficient, and surprisingly resilient. The third secret is one that takes many modern gardeners by surprise, and it is called succession sowing. The Amish never planted an entire crop all at once. They planted in small amounts, 2 to 3 weeks apart, all through the growing season. The wisdom behind this is profound in its simplicity. If you plant all your lettuce on one day, you harvest all your lettuce on 1 week, eat what you can, and watch the rest bolt and go to waste. But if you plant a small handful of seeds every 2 weeks from early spring through midsummer, you harvest fresh lettuce continuously for 5 to 6 months from the same 10 square feet. Hold a handful of Amish heirloom lettuce seed in your palm, tiny, light as dust, almost weightless, and think about the fact that what you're holding, properly managed, can keep a family in fresh salad greens from April through October. That is the power of succession sowing. Before we move on to the next secret, I want you to think about something. Every one of these methods requires not more space, not more money, and not more equipment. They require more attention, more careful observation, more willingness to think about what you're doing. That is the Amish way. Not working harder, but thinking more carefully. The fourth secret is about the soil itself, and the Amish treated soil in a small space with a reverence that modern container gardeners rarely match. They called it feeding the ground, and they did it constantly. Every kitchen scrap, vegetable peelings, eggshells, coffee grounds, apple cores, went into a small composting crock near the back door. Every few weeks, that rich, dark, earthy-smelling material went back into the growing containers and beds. Press your fingers into properly composted Amish soil, and you feel something alive, spongy, dark, warm, even on a cool morning, rich with the smell of deep forest floor. That life is what feeds your plants. That life is what grocery store vegetables never had. Chemical fertilizers feed plants directly, bypassing the soil ecosystem entirely. The Amish method fed the soil and let the soil feed the plants, a difference that shows up in the flavor, the nutrition, and the resilience of everything that grows. The fifth secret is one that modern urban gardeners are only now beginning to rediscover, and it is called seed saving. In every Amish household that practiced small space growing, the end of one season was the beginning of the next. The best tomato from this year's plants, the one with the deepest color, the richest flavor, the firmest skin, was not eaten. It was set aside, its seeds carefully extracted, dried on a piece of cloth in a warm window, and stored in a small paper envelope labeled in careful handwriting for next spring. Over generations, Amish families developed varieties of vegetables perfectly adapted to their specific conditions, their light levels, their soil, their climate. A seed saved and replanted is not just free. It is better than what you started with. And it connects you, in a very real and tangible way, to the people who grew food in that same space before you. Now sit with this for a moment. We are halfway through the Amish small space growing system, and already you can see the pattern. Every secret builds on the ones before it. Vertical growing creates more surface area. Companion planting fills that surface area intelligently. Succession sowing keeps that surface productive all season. Living soil makes everything that grows in it stronger. And seed saving means the system improves itself every year without costing a single dollar. The sixth secret is about water. Specifically, about how the Amish wasted none of it, and how that discipline made their small spaces dramatically more productive. In the Amish tradition, water was never carelessly applied. It was directed precisely to the root zone of each plant, never splashed across leaves where it could invite disease, never pooled on the surface where it would evaporate before reaching roots. Old Amish farm wives buried small clay pots with tiny holes near the roots of their most precious plants, a method called olus, borrowed from even older traditions, and filled those pots slowly. The water seeped out underground, directly where roots could drink it all day long, without evaporation, without waste. A small balcony garden watered with Amish precision uses less than half the water of a conventionally irrigated container garden and produces plants with root systems twice as deep and twice as strong. Touch the soil around a properly watered small garden. Cool and moist, 2 inches down, dry on the surface, exactly as nature intends. The seventh secret is one that will surprise you most, because it answers the question every apartment gardener eventually asks: what do I do in winter? The answer, in the Amish tradition, is simple and powerful. You do not stop growing, you shift. As outdoor temperatures drop, Amish families move their most cold-sensitive growing inside, onto deep windowsills, onto simple wooden shelves near south-facing glass, into small cold frames built from nothing more than old window panes propped over wooden boxes. Herbs grew in clay pots on kitchen windowsills all winter long. Thyme and rosemary and chives brushed with a fingertip every morning to release their sharp, clean fragrance, reminding the whole household that growing things were still alive and still providing. Microgreens, the young shoots of radishes, sunflowers, peas, and mustard, grew on simple wooden trays in kitchen light and were ready to harvest in 7 to 10 days, providing fresh nutrition through even the deepest winter months. The Amish did not have a growing season, they had a growing life. Before we move on to the final secret, sit with what we have covered so far: vertical growing, companion planting, succession sowing, living soil, seed saving, precise watering, winter growing. Each of these practices alone will improve your small space food production dramatically. Together they create something that the Amish have always had and that most modern people have lost entirely: a home that participates in feeding itself. The eighth and final secret is the one that ties everything together, and the Amish would simply call it paying attention. Every morning, an Amish gardener working a small space walks it slowly. They look at every leaf. They touch the soil. They smell for anything that signals trouble: the sharp ammonia smell of over-fertilization, the musty sweetness of early mold, the acrid bite of aphid damage. They notice which plants are thriving and which are struggling, and they ask why. This daily, quiet, careful observation is not just good gardening practice. According to modern research in plant science, it is the single most impactful thing a small space grower can do. Problems caught in one day are fixed in an afternoon. Problems ignored for a week become disasters. The Amish gave their small gardens 5 minutes of genuine attention every morning, and those 5 minutes returned more food per square foot than any fertilizer, any tool, or any gardening technology ever could. So here is what we have learned today. You do not need land to grow food. You need knowledge. You need the Amish understanding that space is not a limitation. It is an invitation to think more carefully. 10 square feet, managed with vertical stacking, companion planting, succession sowing, living soil, saved seeds, precise water, year-round growing, and daily attention, can produce more fresh vegetables than most Americans buy from the grocery store in an entire year. Not as a theory, not as a possibility, as a proven, generations-tested, family-fed reality. The Amish never needed a grocery store, and with what you now know, you need one a little bit less than you did 20 minutes ago. If this wisdom has stirred something in you today, that quiet desire to be a little more self-sufficient, a little more connected to where your food comes from, a little less dependent on a system that doesn't always have your best interests at heart, then please subscribe to this channel and share this video with someone you love. Every week, we go deeper into the time-tested knowledge of the plain people, and what we find there just might change the way you live. Thank you for being here today. Now go find 10 square feet and get started. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. Growing results will vary depending on climate, available light, local conditions, and individual effort. Please research the best plant varieties and methods for your specific region before beginning. Consult local agricultural extension resources for guidance tailored to your area.